Did you know that some black individuals have security teams larger than small armies? We're talking hundreds of personnel, armored vehicles and technology straight out of a spy movie. Curious about who these people are and why they need such intense protection? You're in the right place. William Ruto. Speaking of William Ruto, the president of Kenya. Now you might think being the leader of an African nation comes with some perks. But Ruto's security measures take things to a whole new level. It's not just about having a few tough guys in suits following you around. No, we're talking about a full-scale operation that would make even the most paranoid dictator feel a bit more relaxed. At the heart of Ruto's protection is the Presidential Escort Unit. These aren't your run-of-the-mill bodyguards. They're the cream of the crop, handpicked from the Kenya Police Service for their exceptional skills and unwavering loyalty. Think of them as the Navy SEALs of personal protection, but with an African twist. These guys don't mess around when it comes to training. Their regimen is so intense and secretive that it makes most special forces look like they're at summer camp. The result? A team of silent sentinels who can spot a potential threat from a mile away and neutralize it before you can say Jambo. But the real showstopper is Ruto's motorcade. If you thought your neighbor's new SUV was impressive, wait until you see this rolling fortress. At the center of it all is an armored Land Cruiser that's more tank than car. This beast is equipped with enough high-tech gadgets and defensive systems to make James Bond green with envy. And that's just the start. Surrounding this mobile command center are 10 high-speed motorbikes. These aren't for show, they're the first line of defense, manned by riders who could probably outmaneuver Jason Bourne on a bad day. Their job? To clear the path and respond to any threats faster than you can blink. But wait, there's more. Following closely behind are 7 high-speed Toyota SUVs. These aren't your soccer mum's grocery getters. They're mobile war rooms, packed with enough firepower and communication equipment to coordinate a small invasion if needed. And just when you thought the motorcade couldn't get any more impressive, here come the luxury vehicles. We're talking about Mercedes-Benz X-Class and Range Rovers. These aren't just for show either. They're strategically placed to create a protective cocoon around the president. It's like a game of high-stakes chess, but with cars. Now let's talk about Ruto's personal security team. These aren't just bodyguards, they're more like personal guardian angels with really big guns. We're looking at more than 10 highly trained individuals who specialize in close protection. They stick to the president like glue, always ready to spring into action at the slightest hint of trouble. But their job isn't just about muscle. These guys are also the brains of the operation. They're constantly gathering intelligence, analyzing potential threats and assessing risks. They work hand in hand with other security agencies to create a protective bubble around Ruto that's harder to penetrate than Fort Knox. And it's not just about protecting the big man himself. The Presidential Escort Unit extends its protective embrace to the entire First Family and any important visitors. So if you're ever lucky enough to be a guest of the Kenyan president, you'll get a taste of what it's like to be one of the most protected people on the planet. Paul Kagami. Introducing to you Paul Kagami, the president of Rwanda. Now you might be thinking, Rwanda, isn't that the country that had that terrible genocide? And you'd be right, that's exactly why Kagami's security is off the charts. This guy isn't just protecting himself from your average haters or would-be assassins. He's safeguarding the stability of an entire nation that's still healing from one of the worst atrocities in modern history. Let's rewind a bit. Back in the 1990s, Kagami was a key player in the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a rebel group that eventually put an end to the genocide that tore the country apart. He went from military leader to politician, becoming president in 2000. Now you'd think that would be enough excitement for one lifetime, but for Kagami it was just the beginning of his journey as one of the most protected men in Africa. So what does it take to keep the president of Rwanda safe? Well, let's start with his ride. Forget about your typical bulletproof limo. Kagami rolls in style with a fleet of armored Range Rover Sentinels. These aren't your average luxury SUVs. Each one of these bad boys costs $500,000 and is built like a tank. They can withstand direct attacks, making sure Kagami stays safe even if things get really dicey. But the Sentinels are just the start. Kagami's motorcade is like a small army on wheels. You've got high-speed Mercedes-Benz vehicles zipping around, Land Cruisers packed with security personnel and a swarm of bodyguards surrounding the president on all sides. It's like a well-choreographed dance of steel and muscle, all designed to keep one man safe. Now let's talk about the people responsible for Kagami's safety. These aren't your run-of-the-mill security guards. We're talking about an elite team that's trained to the teeth in military precision and intelligence operations. These guys are the cream of the crop, handpicked to protect the man who's seen as the symbol of Rwanda's resilience. But here's the kicker. Kagami's security detail isn't just active when he's at home in Rwanda. Nope, these guys are on duty 24/7, whether the president is shaking hands with locals in Kigali or jetting off to international summits. They're like his shadow, always there, always watching, always ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. And it's not just about muscle and firepower. Kagami's security team is all about brains too. They're constantly planning, coordinating with local law enforcement, and staying one step ahead of any potential threats. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of chess where the king is always under threat and they can never ever lose. All this security might seem like overkill to some, but in the world of international politics, it's just another day at the office. In fact, Kagami's protective detail has gained quite a reputation on the global stage. Other world leaders look at Rwanda's security measures and think, now that's how you protect a president. But let's be real for a second. All this security comes at a price, and I'm not just talking about the millions of dollars it costs to maintain. For Kagame, being one of the most heavily guarded people in the world means living in a bubble. Every move, every interaction, every public appearance is meticulously planned and executed with military precision. It's the kind of lifestyle that would drive most people crazy. But for Kagame, it's just part of the job. Poor Biya. You might be wondering, what's so special about Cameroon's president that he needs top-tier protection? Well, when you've been in power for over 4 decades, you tend to make a few enemies along the way. Biya's not taking any chances, and his security measures are proof of that. Let's start with his elite bodyguard team. These aren't your average tough guys in suits. We're talking about a hand-picked crew of the most skilled and loyal protectors Cameroon has to offer. These guys are trained in everything from hand-to-hand combat to advanced defensive strategies. They're like a mix between ninjas and Secret Service agents, always ready to spring into action at the slightest hint of danger. But the real showstopper in Biya's security detail, his motorcade. If you thought your neighbor's new SUV was impressive, wait until you see this rolling fortress. At the heart of it all are several Range Rover Sentinels. Now, these aren't your run-of-the-mill luxury SUVs. Each one of these beasts costs around $500,000 and is built like a tank on wheels. They're designed to withstand ballistic assaults and explosions, making sure Biya stays safe even if things get really dicey. But the Sentinels are just the beginning. When Biya makes a public appearance, his motorcade turns into a full-blown spectacle. We're talking about a fleet of high-speed Land Cruisers and Mercedes-Benz cars, all choreographed to minimize any possible risks. It's like watching a military parade, but with better cars and more tension. And you better believe every inch of the route is planned out in advance. Biya's team doesn't leave anything to chance. They've got backup plans for their backup plans, ready to change course at a moment's notice if they smell even a whiff of danger. But in the world of high-level security, it's not just about the physical stuff you can see. Biya's protection detail goes way beyond bulletproof cars and beefy bodyguards. They've got some serious tech games going on too. We're talking state-of-the-art surveillance systems that would make the CIA jealous. They've got communication devices that can probably pick up a whisper from a mile away, and jamming equipment to make sure no one's eavesdropping on the big man's conversations. And let's not forget about the snipers. Yeah, you heard that right. Whenever Biya's out and about, you can bet there are expert marksmen strategically positioned, ready to take out any threat before it gets within spitting distance of the president. Oh, and did I mention they enforce a no-fly zone during big events? Talk about taking better safe than sorry to a whole new level. But here's the kicker. All this isn't just for show. Biya's team works hand-in-hand with local law enforcement to make sure every public engagement goes off without a hitch. They manage crowds, secure areas, and have emergency response plans that would make most countries' disaster preparedness look like a kid's fire drill. Now, you might be thinking, isn't all this a bit excessive? Well, when you've been calling the shots in a country for over 40 years, you tend to take your personal security pretty seriously. Biya's extensive protection measures aren't just about keeping him safe, they're a symbol of his power and longevity in office. Emmerson Mnangagwa. This man has been the president of Zimbabwe since November 2017. Now you might be thinking, Zimbabwe, isn't that the country with all those economic issues? And you'd be right, but Mnangagwa's security isn't about protecting his wallet. It's about safeguarding his life and his grip on power. Let's break down what it takes to keep Zimbabwe's top dog safe. First up, we've got his security team. These aren't your average bodyguards who learned a few martial arts moves and called it a day. No, Mnangagwa's protectors are the cream of the crop, hand-picked from Zimbabwe's top military and intelligence units. These guys are described as having unmatched skills and unwavering loyalty. In other words, they're the kind of people you'd want on your side in a fight, or better yet, preventing one from happening in the first place. But the real star of the show, that would be Mnangagwa's ride. We're not talking about some run-of-the-mill armored car here. His primary vehicle is an armored limousine that's been called a marvel of security engineering. This beast combines luxury with cutting-edge defensive features, making it impervious to bullets and resistant to explosives. It's like driving around in a five-star hotel room that just happens to be bomb-proof. And that's just the centerpiece of his motorcade. Surrounding this rolling fortress are armored Mercedes-Benz vehicles and Land Cruisers, each packed with vigilant bodyguards and support personnel. It's like a small army on wheels, ready to respond to any threat at a moment's notice. But wait, there's more. Leading the charge are high-speed motorbikes operated by riders who could probably give professional stunt drivers a run for their money. These guys are trained to preempt and neutralize potential threats, ensuring Mnangagwa's safe passage through the streets. It's like having your own personal squad of road warriors clearing the path ahead. Now you might be thinking, surely that's enough security for one man. But in Mnangagwa's world, there's no such thing as too much protection. Behind the scenes, his security team is armed with an extensive array of communication devices, surveillance tools, and advanced weaponry. We're talking about tech that would make James Bond's Q branch green with envy. And let's not forget about the human element. Mnangagwa's security detail operates with military precision, following a strict hierarchy where each member knows their critical role. From snipers to medics, these guys work together like a well-oiled machine, creating a seamless and potent defense mechanism. All this security might seem like overkill, but in the high-stakes world of Zimbabwean politics, it's just another day at the office. Mnangagwa's rise to power wasn't exactly smooth sailing, and he's not taking any chances when it comes to staying on top. Barack Obama. Let's talk about the folks responsible for keeping Obama safe, the United States Secret Service. These aren't your average bodyguards. The Secret Service has been protecting presidents since 1901 after the assassination of President William McKinley. They've had over a century to perfect their craft, and boy does it show. At the heart of Obama's security detail is something straight out of a spy movie. It's called The Beast, and it's not your grandma's Cadillac. This armored limousine is a fortress on wheels, designed to withstand bullets, explosives, and pretty much anything else you can throw at it. It's like someone took a tank, gave it a luxury makeover, and said, "Yeah, that'll do for the president." But the Beast is just the beginning. When Obama travels, it's not just a trip, it's an operation. An advanced team of Secret Service agents swoops in like ninjas, scouting locations, teaming up with local law enforcement, and setting up secure perimeters. By the time Obama arrives, the place is locked down tighter than Fort Knox during a gold shortage. And let's not forget about the motorcade. Picture this, the Beast at the center, surrounded by a swarm of vehicles filled with agents ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. It's like a well-choreographed dance, except instead of tutus, everyone's wearing earpieces and bulletproof vests. Now you might be thinking, surely all this firepower is enough. But in the 21st century, threats don't just come in the form of bullets and bombs. That's why Obama's protection extends into the digital realm too. We're talking state-of-the-art cybersecurity measures to keep his communications locked down and his personal data safe from hackers. It's like having a virtual fortress to match the physical one. The agents protecting Obama aren't just muscle, they're the brains of the operation too. These folks combine physical strength with serious smarts, capable of spotting and shutting down threats before they even materialize. They're like a mix between Einstein and the Terminator, always scanning, always analyzing, always ready. But here's the kicker. All this protection comes at a price, and I'm not just talking about taxpayer dollars. For Obama, being one of the most heavily guarded people on the planet means living in a bubble. Every move, every interaction, every public appearance is meticulously planned and executed. It's the kind of lifestyle that would drive most people crazy, but for a former president, it's just another day at the office. Cyril Ramaphosa. Imagine having a tight security guard meet Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. Now you might be wondering what's so special about South Africa that its leader needs top-tier security. Well, let's just say the country's history of political turmoil and ongoing social tensions make Ramaphosa's safety a matter of national importance. This isn't just about protecting one man, it's about maintaining the stability of an entire nation. At the heart of Ramaphosa's protection is the VIP protection services. These aren't your average bodyguards. We're talking about an elite division of the South African police service that was established in the early days after apartheid ended. Their job? To safeguard the president and other high-profile figures from any and all threats. But what exactly does it take to keep the South African president safe? Well, let's start with his ride. Forget about your typical armored limo. Ramaphosa rolls in style with a fleet of custom-made BMWs. These aren't your run-of-the-mill luxury cars. Each one of these beasts is equipped with the latest in defensive and offensive capabilities. They're basically mobile fortresses designed to withstand bullets, bombs, and pretty much anything else you can throw at them. Imagine cruising down the streets of Johannesburg in one of these bad boys. You'd feel invincible, and that's exactly the point. These vehicles aren't just about getting from point A to point B. They're a statement, a rolling symbol of power and security that says, don't even think about messing with the president. But fancy cars are just the beginning. When Ramaphosa's on the move, it's like watching a small army in action. His motorcade is a sight to behold, with high-performance vehicles that can respond to any threat with precision and speed. It's like a well-choreographed dance of steel and horsepower, all designed to keep one man safe. Now let's talk about the people responsible for Ramaphosa's safety. These aren't your run-of-the-mill security guards who learned a few karate moves and called it a day. The VIP Protection Services is composed of highly trained officers who are experts in close protection. They're like a mix between ninjas and chess grandmasters, always thinking several moves ahead and ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. But here's where things get really interesting. When Ramaphosa travels internationally, his security game gets kicked up to 11. We're talking about an elite team of around 100 specialized personnel. That's 100 people whose sole job is to keep the president safe. It's like having your own personal army ready to deploy at a moment's notice. This international security team operates with military precision. They're not just there to look tough and intimidating. These folks are experts in everything from threat assessment to emergency response. They work hand in hand with local law enforcement and security agencies to create a protective bubble around Ramaphosa that's harder to penetrate than Fort Knox. And it's not just about muscle and firepower. Ramaphosa's security team is all about brains too. They're constantly planning, coordinating, and staying one step ahead of any potential threats. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of chess where the king is always under threat and they can never ever lose. All this security might seem like overkill to some, but in the world of international politics, it's just another day at the office. In fact, Ramaphosa's protective detail has gained quite a reputation on the global stage. Other world leaders look at South Africa's security measures and think, now that's how you protect a president. But let's be real for a second. All this security comes at a price, and I'm not just talking about the millions of dollars it costs to maintain. For Ramaphosa, being one of the most heavily guarded people in the world means living in a bubble. Every move, every interaction, every public appearance is meticulously planned and executed with military precision. It's the kind of lifestyle that would drive most people crazy. But for Ramaphosa, it's just part of the job. JayZ and Beyonce, they're just musicians. How much security could they really need? Well, let me tell you, when you're worth over $1 billion combined and have millions of fans and a fair share of haters around the world, you don't take any chances. These two didn't start out with an army of bodyguards, though. In fact, their journey to becoming some of the most protected people on the planet is pretty fascinating. Back in the day, when Beyonce was still with Destiny's Child and JayZ was making a name for himself in the rap game, their security was pretty basic. Maybe a couple of tough-looking guys to keep overzealous fans at bay. But as their stars rose, so did the need for more protection. It wasn't just about dealing with screaming fans anymore. Suddenly they had to worry about stalkers, potential kidnappers, and all sorts of threats that come with being incredibly famous and wealthy. The turning point came in 2013. Picture this. Beyonce's on stage doing her thing when suddenly some over-enthusiastic fan decides it's a good idea to pull her off the stage. Talk about a wake-up call. After that incident, JayZ wasn't messing around. He brought in 5 former intelligence agents who knew how to spot trouble before it even started. These weren't your average muscle-bound bodyguards. These guys had the brains to match their brawn, but that was just the beginning. By 2014, when Beyonce and JayZ kicked off their On the Run tour, their security had evolved into something that would make most small armies look understaffed. We're talking about a team of 500 people. Yeah, you heard that right. 500 people whose sole job was to keep Beyonce, JayZ, and their daughter Blue Ivy safe. It's like they decided to bring a small town with them everywhere they went. And this isn't just a bunch of random people in matching t-shirts. Their security team is like a who's who of protection experts. You've got your standard bodyguards, sure, but then you've got crowd control specialists, people who know how to stop potential home invasions, and even experts in handling hazardous materials. Because apparently when you're this famous, you have to be ready for anything from overzealous fans to chemical warfare. But the real showstopper, their home security. By 2018, JayZ and Beyonce had turned their Hollywood mansion into a literal fortress. We're talking round-the-clock security that would make the Pentagon jealous. It's like they took every spy movie ever made, looked at the security systems and said, yeah, let's do all of that. And let's not forget about their rides. When you're worth $1 billion, you don't just hop in any old car. No, JayZ and Beyonce travel in style and in safety. They've added 2 military-grade bomb-proof vehicles to their fleet. These things aren't just bulletproof, they're designed to withstand actual explosions. It's like they're preparing for a war zone every time they go out for dinner. But here's the thing, their security isn't just about physical protection. In today's digital age, they've got to worry about online threats too. That's why they've got a team of cybersecurity experts working around the clock to keep their private information safe from hackers. Because when you're JayZ and Beyonce, even your Instagram could be a national security risk. And just when you think their security couldn't get any more intense, you find out about their drivers. These aren't your average chauffeurs. These folks are trained in evasive driving maneuvers. Imagine being in a car chase, but instead of some action movie hero behind the wheel, it's Beyonce's driver. And he's not alone. There's a whole medical team on standby, ready to jump into action if anything goes wrong. Floyd Mayweather Jr. What happens when you take someone who's not just famous but infamous for flaunting their wealth and success? You get a security detail that's so massive, it's got its own nickname. I'm talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr., the boxing champion who's as known for his undefeated record as he is for his lavish lifestyle. Now you might be thinking he's just a boxer, how much security could he possibly need? Well, let me tell you, when you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and have a personality that's as polarizing as Mayweather's, you don't take any chances. This guy didn't earn the nickname money for nothing, and he's not about to let anyone get their hands on his hard-earned cash. Mayweather's journey to becoming one of the most protected people on the planet is pretty fascinating. It's not just about dealing with overzealous fans or potential muggers. When you're at the top of the boxing world and known for carrying around stacks of cash, you've got to worry about all sorts of threats that most of us can't even imagine. The centerpiece of Mayweather's security is a team so imposing they've earned their own moniker, the Great Wall. And let me tell you, this name isn't just for show. These guys are literal giants, towering over 6 feet tall and weighing well over 250 pounds each. It's like Mayweather decided to recruit his security team straight from the NFL's offensive line. But don't let their size fool you. These aren't just big guys hired to look intimidating. The members of the Great Wall are all seasoned professionals with backgrounds that would make most action movie heroes look like amateurs. We're talking ex-military personnel, former law enforcement officers, and private security experts. These guys have seen it all and are prepared for anything. The selection process for Mayweather's security team is no joke. It's not like he put out a help wanted ad in the local paper. No, these guys are often sourced from elite military units like Navy SEALs or from police forces known for their tactical prowess. And getting selected is just the beginning. Once they're in, they go through a vetting process that's so thorough, it makes getting a top-secret security clearance look like a walk in the park. But here's where things get really interesting. For Mayweather's team, the training never stops. These guys aren't content to rest on their laurels. They're constantly running drills, simulating potential threats and honing their skills. It's like they're preparing for a war that never comes, but always could. And we're not just talking about physical training. These guys are as sharp mentally as they are physically. They're trained to read situations quickly and accurately, knowing when to step in and when to hang back. It's a delicate balance of being visible enough to deter threats, but not so overbearing that they interfere with Mayweather's public image. The precision with which Mayweather's security team operates is almost military in its execution. Every public appearance, every trip, every event is planned down to the smallest detail. They're responsible for advance work, scouting locations Mayweather plans to visit, and establishing protocols for every conceivable scenario. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of chess, always thinking several moves ahead. But here's the kicker. All this protection isn't just about keeping Mayweather safe. It's also a statement, a visible representation of his success and status. When people see the Great Wall surrounding Mayweather, they're not just seeing bodyguards. They're seeing a physical manifestation of his wealth and influence. King Mohammed VI. This security is insane that you get a protection detail that would make most small countries jealous. We're talking about a man who's not just a king, but a billionaire ruler with resources that make other world leaders look like they're playing with monopoly money. Enter King Mohammed VI of Morocco, a monarch whose security measures are as lavish as his lifestyle. Now you might be thinking, he's just another king. How much security could he really need? Well, let me tell you, when you're worth billions and ruling a country that's seen its fair share of political tensions, you don't take any chances. This guy isn't just protecting himself from your average troublemakers. He's safeguarding an entire monarchy that's been around since the 17th century. At the heart of King Mohammed VI's protection is the Moroccan Royal Guard. These aren't your typical palace guards with fancy uniforms and stoic expressions. No, we're talking about an elite force that's been handpicked for their unwavering loyalty and exceptional skills. These guys are the creme de la creme of Morocco's military and security apparatus, tasked with keeping the king, his influential royal family, and their palatial residences safe from any and all threats. But the Royal Guard is just the tip of the iceberg. King Mohammed VI's security operates like a sophisticated network of precision and intelligence. It's like someone took a high-tech spy movie, mixed it with the opulence of a royal court and said, yeah, let's make that real. They've got an elite intelligence unit that works covertly to sniff out any potential dangers before they even materialize. These guys are so good at what they do, they could probably tell you what you had for breakfast before you even decided to eat it. Now let's talk about the King's Ride. Forget about your typical bulletproof limo. When King Mohammed VI hits the road, it's in a fleet of armored luxury vehicles that would make most car enthusiasts weep with envy. We're talking Mercedes-Benz and Range Rovers for the day-to-day stuff. But when things get really serious, they break out the big guns, armored BMWs and communication-equipped Humvees. It's like having a mobile command center that just happens to be worth more than most people's houses. But here's where things get really interesting. The King's motorcade isn't just a bunch of fancy cars driving in a line. It's a moving citadel, a clear sign of the King's economic prowess and the lengths to which Morocco will go to ensure the security of its sovereign. Each vehicle has its own specific role, creating a protective bubble around the king that's harder to penetrate than Fort Knox during a gold shortage. And it's not just about the vehicles. The security team that accompanies the king is a well-oiled machine of protection. These aren't just muscle-bound guys in suits. We're talking about highly trained professionals who are experts in everything from hand-to-hand combat to advanced surveillance techniques. They're like a mix between ninjas and chess grandmasters, always thinking several moves ahead and ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. But the real magic happens behind the scenes. King Mohammed VI's security detail isn't just reactive, it's proactive to the extreme. They've got a team that meticulously scrutinizes security data and coordinates the king's movements with strategic precision. It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of chess, where the king is always under threat and they can never ever lose. All this security might seem like overkill to some, but in the world of international politics and centuries-old monarchies, it's just another day at the office. In fact, King Mohammed VI's protective detail has gained quite a reputation on the global stage. Other world leaders look at Morocco's security measures and think, now that's how you protect a king. But let's be real for a second. All this protection comes at a price, and I'm not just talking about the millions of dollars it costs to maintain. For King Mohammed VI, being one of the most heavily guarded people in the world means living in a bubble. Every move, every interaction, every public appearance is meticulously planned and executed with military precision. It's the kind of lifestyle that would drive most people crazy. But for a king who's worth billions and responsible for an entire nation, it's just part of the job. Uhuru Kenyatta. We've seen some serious security measures for billionaires and royalty, but what happens when you combine the power of a presidency with the paranoia that comes after leaving office? You get a protection detail that makes Fort Knox look like a paper fortress. We're talking about a man who ruled one of Africa's most influential nations and now needs round-the-clock security just to grab a cup of coffee. Enter Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president of Kenya and the most heavily guarded person on. Now you might be thinking, he's not even president anymore. Why does he need all this protection? Well, let me tell you, when you've been calling the shots in a country as complex as Kenya, you don't just fade into obscurity when your term ends. Kenyatta's security isn't just about protecting one man. It's about safeguarding state secrets, preventing potential political instability, and maybe, just maybe, keeping him alive long enough to make a comeback. At the heart of Kenyatta's protection is the Presidential Escort Unit, an elite branch of the Kenya Police Service. These aren't your average cops who learned a few karate moves and called it a day. No, these officers are handpicked for their extraordinary abilities and unwavering loyalty. They're like a mix between Navy SEALs and chess grandmasters, always thinking several moves ahead and ready to spring into action faster than you can say Jambo. But here's where things get really interesting. The training these guys go through is so intense and secretive, it makes most special forces look like they're at summer camp. They're trained to be the silent protectors, the unseen force shielding the former president from harm. It's like they took every spy movie ever made, looked at the training montages and said, yeah, let's do all of that, but make it real. Now let's talk about Kenyatta's ride. Forget about your typical armored limo. When Kenyatta hits the road, it's in a custom-made armored Land Cruiser that's more tank than car. This beast is equipped with enough high-tech gadgets and defensive systems to make James Bond's Q branch green with envy. It's like someone took a luxury SUV, gave it superpowers, and said, yeah, that'll do for the former president. But the fancy car is just the beginning. When Kenyatta's on the move, it's like watching a small army in action. His motorcade is a sight to behold, with 10 high-speed motorbikes leading the charge. These aren't your average bikers. These guys are trained in evasive maneuvers that would make professional stunt drivers jealous. They're the first line of defense, clearing the path and ready to respond to any threat faster than you can blink. Following closely behind are 7 high-speed Toyota SUVs. These aren't your soccer mum's grocery getters. They're mobile command centers, packed with enough firepower and communication equipment to coordinate a small invasion if needed. It's like having a rolling military base ready to respond to any situation at a moment's notice. And just when you thought the motorcade couldn't get any more impressive, here come the luxury vehicles. We're talking Mercedes-Benz X-Class and Range Rovers, strategically placed to create a protective cocoon around the former president. It's like a game of high-stakes chess, but with cars worth more than most people's houses. But the real magic happens behind the scenes. Kenyatta's security detail isn't just about muscle and firepower. These guys are the brains of the operation too. They're constantly gathering intelligence, analyzing potential threats and assessing risks. It's like they've got a crystal ball, but instead of predicting the future, it's telling them who might be planning to cause trouble. This elite team works in concert with other security agencies, creating a web of protection that extends far beyond just physical security. They're responsible for everything from cybersecurity to counterintelligence, making sure that Kenyatta is protected from threats both seen and unseen. It's like they're playing a never-ending game of whack-a-mole, but instead of carnival prizes, the stakes are life and death.